You're listening to Turi Writer's She Said What podcast. I'm Turi, along with Marcy Persky. In this installment, how restful is your typical vacation? Having returned from 4 days in New York City, I have learned a few things, including what it's like to spend 4 days in New York City without sleeping at all.
Welcome home.
Thank you. I'm glad to be home, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I love my friends, but sometimes the accommodations change.
Okay.
So I have a wonderful friend. I adore her. You know the expression, I would crawl on broken glass for someone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's just change that to, I would sleep on a couch that's too narrow with an uncomfortable pillow and no curtains on the window so the street light blasts in my eyes for her.
Yikes.
Yeah. She used to have a guest room, but then she got married, and her wife has quite reasonably taken the guest room as an office. That's nice, but I had slept on that couch once before. What had changed was that they were tuck pointing the front of her building, and that in New York City, that just takes forever. So for forever, there was scaffolding on the front of the building blocking the streetlight.
Ah.
I felt for 4 nights like, you will answer the questions as we give them to you in my face all night. It was like, I felt really, I know it's not the gulag. There was heat. When you know it's bad when you're saying to yourself, it could be worse. I could be wrapped in a tarp on a subway platform. I could be there.
That's true. Or you could be punched walking down the street. Isn't that like a New York thing now? I've been reading a lot about that.
I have not. No one said a word about it to me. I was warned.
Well, I should have warned you before you went.
Yeah, so I would have had something to worry about. I don't worry about stuff like that. My girlfriend has been warning me about the drug trade on the corner of her block. She wanted me to spend some money to take a cab from the airport, which I don't do. So I came up from the subway, and sure enough, there was the trade. It's different here when nutty people say hi, you just say hi back, but you don't do that in New York. You just ignore them.
Well, back to your sleeping on the couch thing.
Yes.
Real quick.
Yes.
I don't go anywhere without a silk eye mask that I actually wear at my house, because even that little tiny blue dot on the humidifier will keep me awake all night.
I've been known to drape my clean underwear over people's digital clocks and route.
We're going to say drape your clean underwear over your eyes.
There's a thought.
At least it's clean.
And people's routers. I cannot sleep with anything stuck on my face.
I had to decide which took precedence. The little tiny light on the humidifier. or having something on my face. And I usually wake up without it. I take it off sometime during the night in my sleep.
Apparently, we are a generation of fragile sleepers. We've moved
I am, definitely.
a long way evolutionarily from just lying down on the jungle floor and ignoring the sound of the screaming wildlife.
For sure. Except that I can ignore the sounds of the goats and the dogs. Hey, sounds don't bother me. Frankie can hear a dog licking himself. It'll keep him awake all night.
Does it inspire him to anything?
No, well, the tiniest light will keep me awake and drive me nuts.
Yeah. The Princess and the Pea story didn't sound like a fairy tale to me. It just sounded like my life.
My favorite sleep mask, it's embroidered, and it says F, the word, U on the other side. Just anyone who looks at me and tries to wake me up will see it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my cats, my dogs can't read. But
that is a drag. Yeah, I told you that when we were first dating, the spousal unit thought he would wake me up with breakfast in bed, and it was all I could do not to wing it across the room. He's learned.
Yeah.
Chivalry is lovely, but you should have the option. It should be like maybe when you order your breakfast at Denny's and you say, I want an omelet with broccoli, but no.
With the senior discount.
Right. Oh, I'm going to be eligible for the senior discount one of these days.
Yeah.
A friend
Yeah.
of
You
mine
get
has
all kinds of stuff for being old.
pointed this out to me. Speaking of being older and the benefit of being older, which is that sometimes you employ people, I've decided that most of the people I employ, I'm afraid of.
Uh, Maybe you should employ different people.
Well, it's not like I'm afraid of them because they belong to the Hells Angels. It's just that they kind of shove me around a little bit.
You
Yeah. I
being
hired
shoved around?
I hired somebody who doesn't speak English as a first language to help me with some cleaning and especially spring cleaning. And she just pretends not to understand what I am telling her to do when the schedule doesn't suit her.
Oh, she's like me. I pretend I don't hear when someone's saying I don't like something I don't like. I pretend like I don't have my hearing aids in,
Well,
even if I do.
I told her when I needed her to come and help me like clean out all the kitchen cabinets, and we pointed to a day on the calendar and agreed. And then she just decided she'd do something altogether different and announced it to me. No. I had to text her, go, no, you are not. And then she hasn't responded. So I just know what's going to happen. She's going to
She's
show
gonna
up.
show up when
Right.
she feels like it.
Right. And try and push me around. And the same thing happens like when you're getting people working on your house, which doesn't happen to you because you have the fabulous Frankie. But if I hire somebody to work on my house, you're afraid to really say, what is this crappy job you did? Because, they can take your whole house apart if they want to. So,
That's something you need to discuss with Frankie, with the wonderful Frankie,
the
since
fabulous
he is the
Frankie.
supervisor of a bunch of builders, and he gets that all the time. He comes home every day and tells me about his whole day,
Hmm.
and I'm not gonna, and I sit there and I nod my head and I listen. But yes, people do very loudly express to him when they are dissatisfied with something that one of his guys did.
Oh, I'm always so polite. I'm sure you
You're
didn't.
the only one.
I'm sure you didn't notice this giant gap between the windowsill and the tile here. You must have just overlooked. What do you think you might be able to do about that kind of thing?
Did he say put up a curtain?
That's a thought. I tend to get pushed around by all kinds of people, and you wouldn't think they're very subtle. The people who are the pusher arounders, they do it all the time. So they have various techniques for doing it without you realizing that you've been pushed around until you're like shoved up in the corner eating gruel. And then you go, oh, wait a minute. Uh,
Please, sir, may I have some more?
yes, something has happened here. Something has gone horribly wrong. And speaking of people where things go horribly wrong, is there anybody you know on your social media, but you don't know how you know them?
A ton of people, and I don't know where they came from. But yes, I'm constantly going through Facebook and erasing people that I don't know who they are, and especially guys. These guys, I'm a widower in the
Oh, yeah.
south of Philippines, and
Widower. You don't, anybody who's, I'm
yeah,
sorry if you're genuinely a
but
widower, but if you tell me you're a widower, you can kiss my elbow and go away. But in
but
this
yes, I
case,
have a lot of people I have no idea, and I never friended them because I don't friend anyone I don't know.
well, this particular person, I know that I know him. I'm not sure which our point of contact is. It could be several points of contact.
Maybe he
However,
roofied you.
I don't think they had roofies the last time I was anywhere where someone could have potentially roofied me.
There's always been roofies. The cavemen invented
I
roofies.
think it was called a club.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, in any case, this guy is a fancies himself some sort of performer playwright person,
Yeah.
which would lead me to believe I might know him that way. But he also lives in a city where I used to live, so I might know him that way. And he's also part of a community that I believe I may have been part of, so I might know him that way. But the upshot of it was he had a one person show up in New York when I was going to be there. And so I said that I would go. And I went, and I'm sure he expects that I will interview him, but they pass the hat as at this sort of fringe festival It's not sort of,
Mm-hmm.
it's the Fringe Festival. And I put in more money than I've ever put in a hat in my life just so I never have to do anything see anything he's in, watch anything he's in. I'm like, this is all the money you're going to get from me. I'm leaving now and I'm going to take you off my whatever list you may have been on because it's weird. My friend who went with me, we both agreed there was absolutely no point to sitting through this thing for an hour and a half. But what's even worse than hearing somebody tell a bad story who can't even tell a bad story well, although I have friends who would argue there are no bad stories, only bad storytellers. In this case, I would say he's 2 for 2. Bad story, bad storyteller.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, you should never in a one-person show describe something as being awesome. That's just not necessary. If you can't describe it, then shut up. Awesome is
Or
no longer just a descriptor as far as I'm concerned. But the worst part when you go to these little small shows is that without fail, they will have some friends there who feel like it's their job to laugh as loudly and obnoxiously as possible that at anything that might possibly have been construed by somebody as a humorous line. And so
that's why you should always take a straw and a little piece of paper in your pocket, and, and you shoot little spitballs at the back of their heads.
I would have had to be some sort of contortionist because it turned out they were sitting immediately to the right of us, and they were loud. This was my experience. Bad performer makes bad joke, and 2 guys to the right of me go, ha, 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 like that. It's terrible. All night long. And I just wanted to look at them and say, seriously? Really? You really think it's that funny? I couldn't get out of there fast enough. After it was over, I stuffed the largest bill I had on me in the jar and left, never to return. And I don't.
Maybe those 2 guys might have partaken in some of that street corner business before they came into this one-man show.
I think you could be higher than Mars and not find that thing funny. I really do. It was so not funny. It was, and it was like Alice in Wonderland. People would show up in the narrative and then disappear. They would show up for no reason, and then you'd never hear about them again. And I'm thinking, why are you telling us about Svetlana, the Russian bride wife, if that's all she is? I mean, there should be a story that goes with Svetlana, the Russian bride wife, or don't bring her up. What is wrong with this guy? And then, of course, you know something's wrong when someone gives you their CV or their yeah. He's talking about what a great actor he is because he went to Juilliard and he went to Yale and I thought they cannot be letting guys like this. So I looked it up and he took a class at Juilliard one summer, I think.
And he went to Yale High School.
Maybe. I think he put a Yale lock on his locker at whatever high school he went to. And so every day he went to Yale to open up his locker and get out his smelly gym shorts. That is awful. Just so awful. And it just goes to show you that in New York, you have the very best of the very best and the very most ambitious worst of the very most ambitious worst. Have you ever sat through an Andy Warhol movie where nothing happens at all?
No, I don't sit through those.
Any of those movies?
I get rid of them very quickly.
Yeah, it was kind of like the live version of that. It was bad. Really bad. However, my girlfriend's block, which was not this neighborhood, circling back to the problem of the drug trade on her block, that provided some real entertainment. A little bit alarming, but entertainment in retrospect.
What kind of drugs were they?
You don't want to ask, because if you ask, you have to buy them.
Oh.
I suspect that they were a variety. I suspect that anything you wanted was probably available. But people were definitely out of their minds. I watched a guy for no apparent reason just walk up to one of those large metal garbage cans and just kick it into the street for no reason.
Okay.
Just walked up to it and kicked it.
Maybe it said something to him.
In his brain, it probably did.
Yep.
But I'm a really crappy audience for people's drug-induced misbehavior. Now, those guys sitting next to me at the show, they would have been much better. Thanks for listening to the Tory Writers She Said What podcast. Since you've made it to the end, you might want to know that my book, She Said What? A Life on the Air, is not only available in print, but now also in complete audiobook form, narrated by me and available on Audible.